Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is a 5-part saga that I've curated into one from the subreddit Wedding Shaming, and it's by user Wedding Shame, Douchebag's Mistress and the Wedding. Back in the ancient days of the early 1990s, when I first started seeing the man who would become my husband, hubby, one of his best friends was a lying, cheating douchebag, henceforth known as Douchebag. Douchebag was the first in their circle of friends, friend circle, to get married and have children, but he still went by himself with friend circle to an annual week-long camping party event where he would indulge in extramarital sexual adventures. His friend circle politely ignored the outrageous behavior because he told everyone he had an open marriage. His wife would stay home and take care of their young children, which seemed odd because the camping thing was very inclusive of children. But being male, none of them thought to question him about it under the none of my business, right? Theory of friendship. This behavior had gone on for several years before I came around and was accepted as normal by the friend circle. I was the first girlfriend to be included in the camping event, and things started a bit rocky for me the first year with Douchebag. He ended up yelling at me when his conquest du jour overheard me discussing his marital status with hubby, who was at the point my new boyfriend. And the conquest promptly dumped him because of his lack of full disclosure of his marital status to her prior to their recreational activities. I mentioned he is a lying douchebag, right? Functional adults will be shocked to learn Douchebag's wife did not know they had an open marriage, especially Douchebag's wife, DBW. Did not know that he was banging other women at the campground while she was 6 months pregnant with their third child and home watching their other two during the second and not coincidentally pretty much last year of my attendance. How did we find out Douchebag had been lying to everyone about this open marriage? Douchebag's wife confronted me on our return in front of everyone to ask about her husband's behavior on the trip. Since I knew she was pregnant and he had been having unprotected sex, yes, ick that I knew, but we were all camping in tents close to each other, between hearing things I didn't want to hear, accidentally seeing naked people, and him flat out stating he didn't need to use condoms because the drunk chick he picked up didn't seem like the type of person to have STDs. Yuck. I knew more than I wanted. I answered her truthfully. All I have to say is if I were you, I wouldn't let him near me without him wearing a condom. My first answer to her had been, shouldn't you be asking him that? And she had said in front of everyone, I'm asking you because I know you will tell me the truth. She was right. She was pregnant, he was an idiot, and her kid didn't need to have an STD issue because daddy liked it better without protection. It was a tough call and you may not agree with it, but I stand by it. Besides, open marriage, right? Ha! The open marriage liar was called out in front of everyone, and Douchebag's wife went ballistic and said many things, all of which made it clear that his open marriage existed only in his mind. To say I wasn't Douchebag's favorite person after that would be an understatement. He and Douchebag's wife were apparently able to patch things up and recover from the debacle, and Douchebag was still someone who was important to my boyfriend, fiance, and husband. So he and I were polite when the regular social events of friend circle required it. A few years later, he did end up being a groomsman at our wedding and caused some problems with his plans for the bachelor party, which should entertain the drama llamas here. Douchebag wanted to burn me in effigy as part of the bachelor party celebration. One of the other groomsmen was told, became properly horrified, called hubby, and that was one of our wedding fights. Both of my brothers were invited to the bachelor party, and I would like to think they would have been offended on my behalf, but either way, I put my foot down and announced if it happened, Douchebag was out. Hubby was still, if Douchebag isn't in the wedding, there will be no wedding, while I was all, if Douchebag pulls that stunt and you're sticking by him, damn right there will be no wedding. But it didn't happen and our wedding did, so water under the bridge? Lest you think I was special in Douchebag's eyes, he later almost derailed another wedding when he wanted a funeral theme for another bachelor party, complete with casket, and the bride was offended by the insult. Who knew? I roll. Thankfully, the relationship between my husband and his old friend began a natural course of drifting apart. Time passes, and then... Miserable marriages don't fix themselves, and douchebag and douchebag's wife were in one. He knew it, but apparently she didn't. Somehow, douchebag found a new girlfriend, henceforth known as Hobag, and apparently this helped him not be a total jerk at home, and douchebag's wife, who didn't know about Hobag, truly seemed to believe the things they were doing to strengthen their marriage were working. I was not her friend, but there were occasional conversations and she would periodically check in with me over the years, always to profuse thanks for my candor during that rough time when she was pregnant with their youngest. So you may ask, how did I know about Hobag when his wife didn't? He started bringing her around our friend circle and introducing her as his girlfriend. This time, he didn't try to feed anyone the open marriage lie, he just casually expected his friends to entertain her because, hell, I have no idea why he thought they would go along with it, but the bastards all did. This particular friend circle was a bunch of gamer guys who were gradually bringing women into their lives. I had been one of the first after douchebag's wife, and one of the odd things about this gaggle was not a single one of them had any sisters. So maybe that was why they were so challenged when it came to decent behavior about women and relationships. Honestly, I don't care. Douchebag was very careful to not bring Hobag around when I was there, but he blew it when he tried to introduce Hobag to hubby, who told me later he was in shock, didn't know what to do, left a little earlier than expected with a polite excuse and came home to discuss it with me. How do you handle it when someone you care about, douchebag, wants to welcome his new secret girlfriend? I wanted douchebag cut out of our lives, but hubby still had loyalty to him and didn't want to do that. They were brothers by choice, not blood. Hubby and I had some major fights about it because to me, this was all kinds of wrong. Hubby talked to douchebag without Hobag around and found out she was comfortable with him being married, had no concerns about his kids. Douchebag didn't necessarily want a divorce, custody issues and childcare were thoughts. Plus, I think he did care about his wife at least a little. He had no plans on revealing his secret girlfriend to his wife. Douchebag genuinely wanted his friend circle to get to know Hobag because he thought that she was awesome. Like I said, hubby and I had some major fights about this. There was no way Hobag was coming to my home. Loyalty to another married female, even if we weren't friends. And I wasn't going to socialize with either of them while they were together. This was a compromise. I would be civil if it was just douchebag, but if he brought Hobag anywhere, hubby and I would leave. And that meant hubby leaving too, even if I wasn't there to give my evil glare of "you suck." The situation wasn't ideal in any fashion, but douchebag had managed to involve the rest of us in his marital drama, and now it was causing problems everywhere, as everyone ended up being forced to take some kind of side in this situation, lest decades-long friendship be shattered. Personally, I was ready to go thermonuclear on the whole lot of them, but to be fair, they had been hubby's friends before we were together, so I didn't have the same history. I just saw them as kind of being scum, and since I had thought better of them, it was painful. The casualness with which Hobag was welcomed into the friend circle was extremely upsetting to me. In several cases, members of the friend circle were actively participating in providing douchebag with cover for his relationship with Hobag. One couple, newer to the group by a few years, explained they liked Hobag better than douchebag's wife because she was more entertaining with better social skills. Other members were shrugging their shoulders and just trying to stay out of the crossfire. Women with less group history, who obviously hadn't been to the camping sex show debacle, were confused because douchebag's wife wasn't really around a lot. She was staying home watching the kids while he did the gaming nights with the guys. Did I mention she was actually a nice person? So they thought he was a normal single guy with a girlfriend until they had begun developing a relationship with poor Hobag as one of the other girlfriends while I wasn't around as much because of my unpleasant disapproval and refusal to socialize around Hobag. I couldn't help but ask the obvious question. If the friend circle were willing to lie and welcome Hobag for the sake of douchebag, would they be comfortable doing the same to me and my marriage? This question offended my husband. I would never behave like this, which would bring up some issues from our past and cause more fights between us, which made me more insecure and even more hostile to the people creating the situation. Lie down with dogs, get up with fleas, I said to him. Why hang out with people who think this is acceptable if you don't agree with it? And he would remind me of how douchebag had been a good friend for many years before all of this happened and was closer than blood as a brother by choice. Poison spreads. My stance on refusing to socialize with douchebag and hoebag was ridiculed by some and caused damage to other relationships. Even though I wasn't telling people who they could socialize with, I was just refusing to participate. I was being judgmental and prudish, and oddly enough, people who were okay with marital infidelity were not okay with me not being okay with it. To this day, I am still comfortable with the stance I took, which for me was about my own personal integrity. The situation helped me to clarify the boundaries I was comfortable with, and the ones I wasn't willing to cross if I was going to be true to my own vision of myself as a decent person. The line wasn't sex, because open marriage was none of my business. The line was deception. I didn't pick up the phone and called douchebag's wife. My rationale was she knew he had cheated on her in the past, she had stayed, and I had no interest in being the messenger who was going to get shot for telling her what was going on behind her back. But I wasn't going to participate in normalizing this relationship. It was a horrible, horrible situation. It went on for months, and then the wedding happened. The couple who really liked hoebag better than douchebag's wife had been planning their wedding for what seemed like forever. The bride-to-be and I had talked several times and were friendly, but not close, mainly because I was distancing from her as she became closer to hoebag, but everyone was looking forward to the wedding. The wedding finally happened and it was beautiful. The bride's father was a minister who got choked up during the ceremony. She was beautiful, the service was touching, the food was good but not memorable, and there was an open bar. Like I said, beautiful. Douchebag and douchebag's wife were there, along with their 3 children. I won't lie, I relaxed a bit because I assumed the cheating drama wasn't going to visit the wedding. I had been anxious, but apparently the married folk were doing well, so no cheating drama. Phew! I was wrong. While the pictures were being taken, douchebag's wife and I were chatting. I think one of her young ones was a ring bearer. Douchebag's wife explained the reception was adults only, so she was going to have to take the kids home because they couldn't afford a babysitter. We both looked around at the other young children who were still at the church but assumed they weren't going to be at the reception. Douchebag's wife and douchebag had discussed the fact that he was going to be staying at the reception because of his close relationship with the groom. I think he was a groomsman. She was bummed because she was feeling very isolated and had been looking forward to an evening with adults, but she was putting a good face on it. Money was tight after all, especially with a husband in the bridal party. I won't lie, I got a very, very sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. They wouldn't, would they? Oh yes, they did. The reception began. Douchebag's wife took their brood home and hoebag stepped in as douchebag's date. Hoebag had been at the wedding, but staying back out of sight and out of the way of douchebag's wife, who I was sitting with, so I hadn't noticed her. I will never forget looking over and seeing hoebag sitting on douchebag's lap at the reception. I will never forget how awful I felt as I realized I was participating in the public humiliation of a very nice woman and her 3 young children. I will never forget seeing members of the friend circle laughing with the 2 of them. I will never forget how my empathy kicked in as I realized I was being made an accomplice to their lies. I briefly talked with my husband. He asked what I wanted to do. I asked him to wait a few minutes. I went up and took a dance with the groom. He was very happy and a little tipsy. I asked if he knew what he was doing and he smiled and said yes. They'd planned the reception to be child-free so douchebag and hoebag could be together. I looked at the other children who were still there and realized the bride and groom were lying scum. You should be ashamed. You two have created some bad karma, I told them, and then I walked off the dance floor. I walked up to the bride, told her congratulations, and I hope she was comfortable with the karma she was creating. I also told her she should be ashamed of what she had done. I did not create a scene. I spoke quietly but firmly. What they had done was wrong. We left. So there it is. I told the bride and the groom at their wedding they should be ashamed of their cruel behavior. I was probably the only one who said something and I have no regrets about it. If I had known they were going to do that to douchebag's wife and her children, I wouldn't have attended in the first place. And I guess since people knew it, that was one of the reasons I wasn't told. Everyone assumed I would just sit there politely while they enjoyed the company of the woman they liked better. Sometimes integrity sucks. There was an open bar after all, winky face. The saddest part was I knew douchebag's wife considered these people friends. She had welcomed most of them into her home for almost 10 years when this wedding occurred. Her sons called several of them uncle, and yet the members of the friend circle had looked at her with barely concealed scorn and pity while laughing with the woman her husband was cheating on her with at a wedding reception, while she took their children home because she respected the bride and the groom's child-free reception request. All the while they were plotting a special evening for douchebag and hoebag. I have never been more ashamed of having attended an event in my life. I said before that the wedding and the bride were beautiful. I lied. On the surface, they looked beautiful, but the ugly was there for anyone who really looked. My friendship with the bride and groom never recovered. They didn't like the fact I called them out on their guest list decision, and I didn't give an F. Candidly, I still don't, and it has been over 2 decades. A few months after the wedding, hoebag got sick of being the side piece and demanded douchebag tell douchebag's wife. Douchebag's wife handled it with more class than I probably would have. She actually asked him, "If you wanted a divorce, why didn't you just say so?" Truthfully, I think she was a bit relieved to know she hadn't been losing her mind when she kept being suspicious of his less and less believable lies. The two were divorced, and douchebag married hoebag pretty quickly. I didn't go to that wedding. My husband was invited. I don't remember if the invite was for the both of us, but there was no way I was going. He made an appearance at the wedding but did not stay for the reception. There was no joy in the occasion for my husband, and while I do not remember it, I am confident my contempt for the situation was not something I was silent about at home. The relationship between hubby and douchebag wasn't the same as it had been in the olden days, and honestly, that was a relief. Then, time passed some more. After a few years, douchebag's new marriage was having issues. He kind of knew there were problems, but the big train of clue was when he walked into his home and discovered hoebag having sex with another man in their bed. She explained her reasoning for cheating. Apparently, she felt it was necessary and not the first time she'd been unfaithful to him, and he was shocked and devastated. He then tried to talk it over with one of his best friends, aka his now ex-wife, bitterly bemoaning how hoebag could have hurt him like that by lying and then he noticed the look on ex-douchebag's wife's face, and the bricks of reality fell upon his head. He apologized to her. He apologized with a sincerity that was long overdue, and then he called me to tell me he had apologized to her, and apologized to me because now he finally got what a crappy thing he'd been doing. His ex-wife called me too and shared the apology. It was a nice circle of closure, even though it was years after the original incidents. It took a very long while, but I was friends with douchebag on the Book of Faces for a few years. We haven't seen him in real life in over a decade, and that is okay with me, even though it sometimes makes hubby sad the way one gets when remembering long ago important people. He has never met our children, even though he has been invited to some of the important life events in the intervening years. Milestone birthdays for hubby and that type of thing. Douchebag is on his 3rd marriage, we weren't invited to that one, and appears to have grown up considerably in the intervening years. His current wife seems like a lovely person, the way people on Facebook usually seem nice. I honestly don't know her and have no problems with keeping things that way. The friend circle splintered badly for a while, but some of the relationships remained strong. This all happened when most were in their 20s and early 30s, amid the struggle to stay loyal to people you care about and not be judgmental while deciding what was acceptable and what wasn't, and it was tough on everyone. They don't get together as often for gaming anymore, and I didn't mind that a bit. And karma is real. I warned the bride and groom both at the horrible excuse of a wedding, and my prediction unfortunately came true. After, I think, 16 years of marriage and one beautiful child, the two experienced a period of financial difficulty. The groom took a job in another city for the income, only for a little bit until the economy improves, and joined a new friend circle. He met another woman, and his new friends liked his new girlfriend much better than the wife they never met. His teenage daughter came to visit, discovered the affair, and the marriage blew up. So, the bride in this story got to live with public humiliation and cheating and people liking someone else better than her and not caring about her marriage or her child or the effects her spouse's infidelity would have on the family they created together. The divorce has been finalized and now everyone just has to live with the aftershocks. I think that all happened about 5 years ago. No one says much about the groom except he lives far away and doesn't see his daughter very often. She was apparently quite angry about the pain he caused her mother. The bride and I aren't anything more than polite on the very rare occasions we see each other, so I am left to wonder if the warning I gave her after she helped orchestrate douchebag's public celebration of his infidelity by lying to douchebag's wife about an adults-only reception ever comes to mind. Probably not. She had a lot going on that day, but I remember what goes around comes around, and the world continues to spin. The end. Wow, OP, that was epic, and the fallout was ridiculously karmic. Everybody got what they had coming. Thank you so much for sharing, OP. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.